News just coming in this morning, 25 Indian fishermen have been arrested by the Lankan Navy for crossing the border. The fishermen issue is likely to figure during Prime Minister's meeting with his Sri Lankan counterpart, in fact with Sri Lankan President in Myanmar. He is likely to meet Sri Lankan President on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC summit. Priyamvada is joining us on that breaking story. Priyamvada, a brazen provocation coming in from the Sri Lankan Navy, arrest of 25 Indian fishermen in those waters.
Absolutely, and this has come as a big jolt to the possible talks that was happening between that's going to happen between the Prime Minister Manmoha Singh and Mahinda Rajapaksa. As such, the Tamil Nadu politicians have been urging the Prime Minister from resigning from meeting Mahinda Rajapaksa. And only yesterday, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister had attacked the central government for not being persistent and not being hard on the Sri Lankan government for continuing attacks on the Indian fishermen, despite the first rounds of talks between both the countries are already over on this issue, and the second round of talks is likely to happen in Colombo on the 9th of this month. So while the negotiations are happening on one hand, the other hand, we see these attacks happening and capturing of the Indian fishermen happening, about which the fishermen community and the state government is very unhappy. So it remains to be seen how the Tamil Nadu politicians are going to react to today's attack, especially on the day when Manmohan Singh is likely to meet Rajapaksa.
That's right. It's very significant, the timing of it, as you mentioned, Priyamvada, and as expected, the Tamil parties are likely to rake up this issue, pile on pressure on the central government and the Prime Minister, who is right now in Myanmar for the BIMSTEC summit, where he's likely to meet Sri Lankan President. But it's been a vexed issue, the issue of fishing rights in these waters, where several Indian fishermen have been arrested in the past as well. Just take us through the position that the Tamil parties have taken on this so far.
At least, Ruchika, in the last 10 years, more than 400 Indian fishermen have been killed. Thousands of them have been arrested. Even now, more than 120 Indian fishermen are languishing in the Sri Lankan prisons. This is going to be an important topic, important point for the Tamil parties in the coming Lok Sabha elections to attack Congress. They have been, be it DMK or ADMK, have been blaming this Congress-led government for not having proper talks with the Sri Lankan government, not initiating talks with the Sri Lankan government to put an end to this. The controversial island Kachativu, which now belongs to Sri Lanka, once belonged to India, but it was ceded away in 1976. So the demand of the Tamil politicians have been to retrieve the island, which they know is technically not possible. There is a case pending in the Supreme Court regarding this. So this is but going to be an important topic for all the politicians in this election to counter Congress. In fact, even BJP has taken up this issue. We recently saw Sushma Swaraj visit the fishermen area of Rameshwaram here in Tamil Nadu to talk to the fishermen community. So that important, the cases, at least 8 to 10 constituencies, the vote banks mainly depend on these fishermen. So all the politicians want to make maximum use of it.
Priyamvada, thanks for joining us. It's a bread and butter issue for these fishermen. It's an emotive issue in Tamil Nadu. We have our correspondent Maha Siddiqui now joining us on the phone line. She's accompanying the Prime Minister on his visit to Myanmar. And Maha, as we see Prime Minister possibly hold this bilateral talk with Sri Lankan President in Myanmar, news coming in of 25 Indian fishermen being arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy could throw a spanner in the works of that meeting. What's also key to note here is whether or not the Prime Minister raises this issue when he meets Sri Lankan President.
Well, it is most likely, Ruchika, that this issue will be raised, because whenever there is a meeting at a high level, issue of fishermen is always raised, because there are 100 fishermen in Sri Lankan custody. India has been insisting that this matter should be treated in a humanitarian fashion, because remember that many of these fishermen are lured into the Sri Lankan waters by better catch, and therefore inadvertently they go into the Sri Lankan waters, and therefore India insists that they should not be treated in the way they are. Earlier there was reports which India had highly protested of them being mistreated. Later on, Sri Lanka decided that they are going to put the fishermen through a judicial process, all those who are caught fishing in Sri Lankan waters. So India has been constantly raising this issue, saying, as you were rightly pointing out, it's a question of bread and butter. When these fishermen get arrested, they also lose out on their livelihood many days. this is certainly an issue that India constantly raises, and we're expecting that the Prime Minister went to meet the Sri Lankan President. Now here will again definitely be raised.
Maha Siddiqui will be tracking those developments with you. Thank you for joining us. For now, certainly pressure on the Prime Minister to raise this issue with Sri Lankan President and find a resolution to this vexed problem. We've seen a number of times Indian fishermen being arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy, several of them still languishing in Sri Lankan jails. So talks with Rajapaksa will take place 3 months after Prime Minister had skipped a visit to Sri Lanka to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting due to immense pressure that came from the Tamil parties as well as from within the government on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will be seeking more measures from Sri Lanka as he takes up the issue of Indian fishermen. That's what our correspondent Maha Siddiqui is now confirming to us. Let's also listen in to what the External Affairs Minister had to say about the issues that are likely to crop up in that meeting.